What if I told you we have the burial cloth of one of the most important humans in all of history? The Shroud of Turin is a 14 by 3 foot linen shroud used to bury the dead. The shroud depicts a man laying there on his back, and many believe that man to be Jesus Christ. I've studied Christianity most of my life. I went to a Catholic high school and as well as a Catholic elementary where we studied theology, and I had many theology classes talking about the shroud. The shroud is particularly relevant in the world today. It is the most studied artifact in human history, with studies still coming out on it. Even if you're not religious or Catholic or Christian, it still has significance because it's an artifact that is using science and is controversial in the fact that a lot of this science goes against each other. So finding truth is very important. So today I'm going to first talk, I want you guys to understand the origin of the shroud, the history behind it, and also the controversy surrounding it and what it means for us today. So today I'm going to talk about the origin of the shroud, and then next I'll talk about some of the controversy surrounding it, and then lastly I'm going to talk about the relevance of why we should care and why it's significant. I think we'll first talk about the origin. So the shroud was first uncovered in the 14th century in France. It's still in France, protected by the Catholic Church. So originally in this medieval period, they found the shroud, and it depicts a man by 14 by 3 feet is the linen, and it has a high resolution image of it. So it's a photographic negative, which means the light parts are really dark and the dark parts really light. So in a photograph, it appears very clear, but just looking at the cloth, it's not very clear, seeing the actual image of the man. The man has wounds on his side, as well as blood stains on his wrists and his ankles. It's pretty agreed upon that this man died of crucifixion, which was a popular way to torture someone and put him to death during the Roman Empire. We first hear about the shroud in the Bible when Joseph is bringing Jesus down from the cross, and he says that he buries Jesus or wraps Jesus in linen and puts him in the tomb. This Bible verse is mentioned in all of the Gospels, and it's significant because it calls to mind that this linen did exist and the shroud did exist. After the Bible and after it being mentioned, there's a big gap until it was found in France, and we don't know anywhere, or we can't unfortunately trace where the shroud went. We just know that it was discovered in France in an old church. So now that you know somewhat about the origin, we'll talk about some of the controversies surrounding it. So the shroud, in its most famous study in 1988 by the University of Arizona, it was dated to the medieval centuries. So this puts it way past the time of Jesus, which many believed at the time that this study was legitimate, and they disregarded the shroud as just a medieval forgery. Since then, a lot of studies have come out on the shroud, and one of the most recent being Dr. Lenigo de Cerro, who did an X-ray of the shroud and tried to date it that way with X-ray technology. He actually dated the shroud to be the 1st century, which lines up with its biblical counterparts. So the first controversy comes from the date, because at one hand you have someone saying that it's the medieval centuries, and the other is saying that it is dates to the time of Jesus. Disregarding that, we don't actually know how the image of the shroud got there. So scientists have discovered that there's no dyes and there's no paint in the shroud. So the material, it's almost ingrained in it with no physical sign of any of that. Many believe that maybe it was some sort of chemical reaction that caused it, of a decaying body releasing energy. But since then, a lot of those studies have been disproven, and that the decaying body doesn't release enough energy to produce an image like that, or a high resolution image. And they haven't seen that in any other burials with linen. So this still remains a mystery with many different theories. One of the most notably being that it happened from a short burst of light. And this would explain the photographic negative ingrained into the cloth. And in order to do this, there'd have to be a lot of energy. And Catholics and Christians reason that the resurrection, when they say in the Bible that in a burst of light, he was brought into the heavens, that in this burst of light, the shroud actually got ingrained with his image, which is extremely interesting, extremely cool. But all these studies, I guess, go against each other or have different ideas of how this image was made, but none have the actual answer yet. So now that you know some of the controversies surrounding it, we'll go on to why does it matter? So like I said before, the shroud is the most studied artifact in human history, which brings up all its significance today. There are a lot of Christians in the world today, and significance of having the burial cloth of Jesus Christ and proof of the resurrection calls to mind the truth of Catholicism, the truth of many other religions, which is very heavy and very important, and something that science and religion should take seriously. That's why it's studied so much. So even if you're not Catholic, Christian, or religious in any sense, it's still an interesting artifact, and it's still ancient, and it's still amazing that it can be studied. So in conclusion, we covered the origin of the shroud, we covered the controversies surrounding it, we covered the relevance it has today. I hope that you took away from this, you have more of an idea of like the controversy surrounding the shroud and how important it really is, and also that you have a better idea of how it's relevant in the world today. I hope that you took something away from this talk and this information, and even though it's doesn't pertain to everyone, it still is extremely significant in the world and something that everyone should look into, because uncovering truth is important, and as humans we need to seek truth in order to find answers and to find a way that suits us for living.